Hello and welcome to Next 2.0 on WQLN NPR. Next is produced by the Public's Voice Media. I'm your host, Marcus Atkinson, here with guest host Marc Blount. If you want to know more about Next 2.0, you can go to Facebook and like the page. You can also follow us on Instagram at Next 2.0 Erie to keep up with upcoming show promos, events, and clips about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Katt Williams Effect. Marc.
Wow. Wow.
And in case you've been sleeping under a rock somewhere, Katt Williams, when they say he broke the internet, he really broke the internet. I know at one point they were in hot pursuit of Joe Rogan's record for the largest viewership of any interview on YouTube. I want to say that number is in the 55 million range. To date, you've got 60 million views of Katt Williams' interview with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay. And when they say it broke the internet, it broke the internet. And so when I talk to folks, my white counterparts in particular, and they say, what's the big deal about Katt Williams? Is he that popular? I don't know if it's a matter of him being that popular, but the level of, I would say, candor and honesty, Marc.
I think he was controversial.
It was very controversial.
That's the word I would look. Or as he might would say, real. And it was uncut.
Yeah.
It's perfect time.
Well, I'm calling it the Katt Williams effect because Monique follows him up. She interviews on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharpe. That video to date has about 13 million views.
Yep.
And when you go back to the numbers for the interview with Shannon Sharpe, Shannon estimated costs or profit for just that one interview. Now, mind you, you go to YouTube right now and you look up Club Shay Shay. He's got a lot of videos at the 7-figure mark or more. 2 million views, 7 million views, 1.8 million views. And so Shannon has a legitimate financial endeavor going on here with this podcast or this interview format that he has. But that one interview brought in upwards of $600,000. 600 grand, process that for a second or two. And then again, Monique follows him up. And so I want to just go back and forth with Marc and talk about not just the interview and the content of the interview, but the fallout, how much of it you feel like was justified interview content, how much was gossip. I mean, there's a lot of debate going on.
I thought Katt saw this, and I'm going to give it to Katt as far as his foresight with this. I think Katt saw it as an opportunity to promote, and he saw it. And I think he saw it before Shannon saw it by the way Shannon was taken back by, he didn't know how to question him after it started.
He didn't.
Once the ball got rolling, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't put the genie back in the bottle, so to say. And now I think he's learned how to do it after the aftershock of it. Not to say that I think he took anything of it as personal, but I think he lost control as the interviewer of the show. He couldn't question. He was so intrigued by what Katt was saying and the performance of Katt,
as we all were,
that he was glued to his seat like we were.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear people debate, and I think it's a worthy debate. On the one hand, some people are like, you know what, this is another example of black on black crime. He in there running the brothers into the ground. They even showed a video clip of Dave Chappelle, like, you didn't call the white boys out for doing what they're doing, in the industry, and people are doing this kind of stuff in the industry all the time, but you pointing at the brothers. On the flip side, some of the conversation was, whether the brothers are playing this gatekeeper role, and that needs to be laid bare. Which side of that argument did you, if it is even a side of that argument?
I'm on the side. I wish Katt would be honest that I thought it was a performance, and he looked at it as any publicity is good publicity, and it did what he wanted it to do. And it was a promo for his concert, for his quote-unquote brand, and he mixed it in. We got to remember, this. He's right off of death row. He hangs with Suge. He's part rapper. He's living that life of he's beefing. So he's beefing with he's bringing that hip-hop or rap or whatever vibe to comedy. And comedy is yet, I guess, street enough that the audience is vibing with that. And we bought into that, like Biggie, Suge, or a Death Row versus Bad Boy type thing. Well, he went after Kevin Hart and a host of others, Steve Harvey. And I think that a lot of people bought it, but I think some of it was performance.
I think that, I think the environment was perfect for it, too. You think about it. During the pandemic, we saw the rise of versus, these battles online.
Yes.
And it was DJ this versus DJ that. It was, Escape versus SWV. And you had these artists of a similar genre. And we got a chance to see, okay, you're going to pick your best 8 songs and perform them. You're going to pick your best 8. And we all get to judge. And it became a thing.
A thing, yes. There you go. That was a good one right there.
So the gladiator mentality, man, with the arts has become somewhat fashionable. And so like you're saying, if Katt took that angle, people obviously took the bait, but I think Black America was primed for it leading up to that moment.
Definitely. And we all feel like it could only be one king, one GOAT, one whatever. And, Michael versus LeBron and Prince versus Mike, Jay versus whoever. All of it wants to be the top. And we kind of fall into it instead of just appreciating what it is, the talent that it is. I think it's enough room for everybody to eat. Because I like Country Wayne don't mean I have to hate Katt. Because I like Katt don't mean I have to hate Kevin Hart. So I think they brought that energy in, and I kind of wish it would die down now, because it seemed like Michael Epps followed it up, and now it seems kind of fake. It seems transparent now, where Mike calls Shannon soft or whatever, Shay, and they get a little beef and it's over in one day. They apologize in one day.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes the genuine part away from it.
Hey, Stephen A. Smith gets on the air, and Stephen A. first makes it clear that Shannon is not just an entertainer, he's a voice, because Shannon said, I'm just an entertainer. No, you a voice. But then I'm noticing that Stephen A. was also very careful in following interviews or following statements that say Steve Harvey is a friend. Kevin Hart is a friend.
Yep.
And I got to be really careful. These are friends. And I'm thinking, okay, Stephen, now you're trying to do the double dutch with it. This is my opinion, trying to do the double dutch. And this is where it really struck me when he was talking about how I'm a journalist. I would have handled those interviews differently.
Definitely.
Than Shannon did. I would have gave him more pushback. I would have asked more follow-up questions. Yes. I would have dug into the content of it. And that was one of the knocks. What, Shannon, you just let these folk gossip.
Yes. Yes. And pretty much it was like how Skip would used to do T.O. and he allowed it. I mean, it was like, he was almost like, I don't want to call it cyberbullying, but he was creating a narrative. Like the one I didn't like, even though I did find it entertaining, I'm not going to lie about that. I love the show. However, when he went after Kevin Hart, how he said Kevin Hart was given what he was given. I remember when Kevin Hart came to Erie.
He did.
Kevin Hart worked his ass off to get what he acquired. And I don't like this narrative where if we make it, we had to do something shady to make it. Mm-hmm. And it seems like we do that a lot. If the brother made it, he's an Illuminati. Or if the sister made it, she did X and Y and all this type of stuff. Yeah. Sometimes it's pure talent. Sometimes it's mental. And it's their drive, man. Like Will Smith said, I might not be the most talented, but I'm going to work harder than anybody in there.
Yeah.
And Kevin Hart is one that he did. He works hard at what he does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the Illuminati. The people talked about the dress, but then they break out pictures. Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie, the dress. And Dustin Hoffman is not a small name in Hollywood.
No, he's not.
Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire. Robin Williams was not a small name in Hollywood. Go all the way back. Arguably the most bankable white actor or actor period in Hollywood is Tom Hanks. Bosom buddies, the whole show was him and his partner putting on a dress so they can stay in a building full of women.
Yep.
So it's not like it was exclusive to black folks. It goes back to your point of, or even to Dave Chappelle's point of, why put all of us in that box exclusively?
Yes.
We ain't the only one to put on the dress. Now, Dave didn't want to put on the dress. I get that. Other people spoke to that. I get that. I do think there's an agenda to emasculate black men, but the dress itself, we ain't the only ones putting it on in Hollywood.
I was more concerned with Vane Rhymes and Pulp Fiction, Samuel Jackson and Hateful Eight than I was about Wanda and Shanae.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the images was bad. I clearly realized that Martin was playing a character.
Yeah.
I don't think he was pushing the agenda of young men wear dress like me. I don't see it in there. I'm not going to go there with that. Mm-hmm. But also, I think it caught a wave of the anti-Tyler Perry thing. That was the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Madea, some people think that he took Madea too far. And I think, personally, if it worked for him. Tyler Perry is who Tyler Perry is. And I think that's apples and oranges. I don't know if there's an Illuminati that gave Tyler Perry a dress and gave him the keys once he took off on Madea and they started backing Madea. I think Tyler Perry is a hard-working, very talented individual and a good businessman. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, what his sexuality is, I don't really care.
It's his business.
But I would say I'm not going to take away the man's talent, and that's what I think we do quite easily sometimes. We take away their talent.
Mm-hmm. And being from Erie, but having lived in Atlanta for quite some time, I used to talk to people about Tyler Perry before Tyler Perry was a household name. I'd come home for vacation and mention, we want to go see the Tyler Perry play. And black folks was like, who? Because it wasn't a name like that yet.
No.
And so I watched Tyler Perry and T.I., those two audiences I watched grow in Atlanta over time. The good old fashioned way. I mean, T.I. used to go to the Golden Glide roller skating rink, and T.I. was there performing. Yeah. So I watched a lot of these people grow, to be fair. And when it comes to Tyler, I get that a lot with Tyler Perry. One of the things that I acknowledge, Mark, I feel like Madea, in a genuine sense, for a similar reason as to why and how soul food hit us so personally, because we all had a big mama. I think that Madea is an amalgamation of the older aunt or the grandmother that a lot of us had.
Yes, no doubt. She was Geraldine.
Exactly.
We go back to Geraldine.
Flip Wilson.
All these characters is basically based off of somebody that we know.
Exactly.
We know someone like that.
Which is why we love Aunt Esther on the San Francisco.
There we go.
We all had that Aunt Esther figure somewhere, whether it was in church or in the family.
Yes.
And so I think in that, to be fair, that is Tyler mirroring back some of our own experiences to us. And I talked about this before, but even the way he did theater, the way he does theater, and allowing us to have the same cadence or the interaction that we have at the Black church, to me, it's honoring a culture that we're all familiar with, which is why we all laugh with Madea, because it's like, that reminds me of Aunt so-and-so. Oh, my grandmama used to act like that. And so, I thought that whenever people go there with him, I'm like, I see what he's doing. And in terms of it being overplayed, it's working and it's entertaining and not in a offensive way. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We always tend to do that to each other. But with the Katt Williams thing, what intrigued me the most about his story is I didn't know we had that similar background with this Kingdom Hall thing, that Jehovah's Witness thing.
Yep.
And what parts of his personal narrative did you listen to and say, wow, I didn't know? And what parts did you listen to and be like, come on, Katt, come on.
I didn't know his homeless story, and then upon further investigation, like you listen to Boosie, how Katt will look out for folks, or he'll tour a city and he'll donate money. He'll drop a bag off at a homeless center, and this is just real talk. Or he's seen Boosie, invited Boosie to the show, had him come out. He heard he just got out of jail, gave him 15 Lars, didn't even bring it to him himself. He just said, hey, take this to him and tell him much love.
Yeah.
So when you got an individual like that, I think his heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes our methodology doesn't always justify what we do, but I understand it. I would just say like that. Ali did it with Joe Frazier, I found out, where he made a villain out of Joe Frazier to sell the fight. Mm-hmm. He didn't really believe Joe Frazier was all those things he called him, but to sell the fight. But when you're the brunt of that, there's a permanent damage. And Joe Frazier, I think to the day he died, couldn't really even get over that hump right there.
Yeah. I get what parts did you say? Come on, Katt.
The Luda thing, where he went into the room and he said two of us went into the room and one of us ended up with a $50 million and they said cut their hair. That type of talk. See, and Katt knows what he's doing. I don't subscribe to that.
He does. I can't front. When it comes to Luda, Mark, I can't front. I have said jokingly, I I have no logical explanation as to why Ludacris is still as relevant as he is. Snoop Dogg, I can see plainly how he has stood the test of time and he is still as relevant as he is. Aside from somebody just liking Luda, this was before Katt even said what he said. I can't. I'm like, what? How is he still relevant the way that he is?
Furious. He got with the Fast and Furious.
Maybe I'm underestimating that film franchise.
That's it. It ain't like he got a hit
maybe
today.
I'm underestimating.
Oh, whatever. Because he don't. But when they reel out that Fast and Furious, that character will probably be in there.
Yeah.
And it's the same. What else does Tyrese have right now outside of Fast and Furious?
This is very true.
So they're riding along on that big wave, and it always does well at the theaters.
My favorite part of the interview is when Katt was like, y'all thinking this man got the sharpest line in the business, and that's a man.
He did crush Steve. He crushed Steve.
Oh, man. And listen, if you don't go to the barbershop, you know, when you black folk and you hit the bar, not even black folk, a lot of because of the barbershop I take my son to, you get Middle Eastern brothers in there getting shaped up. Some of our white brothers in there getting shaped up. Our Hispanic brothers in there getting shaped up. Man, when that line is crisp and sharp.
And black, I thought it was like a Jerome Bettis. I thought
right.
I thought his Beijing was tight or what have you. I would have never guessed. I would. It was a real good one. But then there was also one about the stealing of jokes.
Yeah.
And we're in the age of the internet, and you got to watch when you throw it out there, understand that if you did it, it's going to come back to haunt you.
May as well say it.
Well, Bernie Mac, who was praised, I didn't know the joke about the bus driver was already done on Designing Women.
Bombinicious.
There you go. Bombinicious was done on that
Designing Women.
And I was like, whoa, where is this? I wouldn't have known it, but it's how you tell it.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you tell it. So if you tell it good, I mean, like we all borrow something from somebody
We
got
do.
influences, or we put a spin. There's several times where I heard Eddie Murphy tell a joke, and I said that sounds just like a Richard Pryor joke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a major problem with it. I don't think you steal a whole man's act. Like he went deep with Mr. Cooper and Steve Harvey.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, whoa, he plagiarized all of what that brother did, and I was like, whoa, because I never really liked Mr. Cooper or what is the brother
Hanging with Mr. Cooper?
Yeah,
that wasn't my speed either.
For whatever reason, I didn't find him that funny.
I didn't get into him. I didn't get into Sinbad a lot either. You know, so and listen, these were great comedians. They've done well for their time. Just wasn't my speed.
There we go.
But it goes back to the internet. You're absolutely right, Mark, because when these people were climbing that ladder, you didn't have the receipt factory that you do nowadays with social media and the internet, period, because what I love about the internet is also what I hate about the internet. And you're right. If you did it and it was in public, you may as well cop to it because somebody got it on their phone.
You think about this. The key word now, everybody wants to go, quote unquote,
viral.
What was the commercial of Beyonce on the thing? Breaking the internet. Katt is very aware of these things. And then the follow-up show wasn't, I don't believe it was Monique. I thought it was Country Wayne. And when Country Wayne came in, he gave you the game of monetization of the internet because he's mastered.
That's where he's making his money.
And I thought both of them, listening to both of those, it puts it all in the proper perspective.
Yeah.
Because Shannon, to me, now you got to dig this. Shannon got more views on that than any show that he did on Undisputed or First Take.
Yep.
They had higher ratings. So that's the power of the internet right now.
Yeah.
That's the power of podcasts.
Yeah. It goes that, so I'm going to the Monique thing. With Steve Harvey, well, let me ask you this. Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, the internet backed it up with receipts. The majority of what Katt Williams said about the industry, if not damn near all of it, the internet backed it up with receipts, even down to the man units. They was showing it, the afro from behind with the big old, balding area. And I get it. Do you think he took Steve Harvey, especially Steve Harvey, because his brand is obviously much bigger than Cedric the Entertainer's, you think his brand took a hit or is taking a hit in the fame or popularity of this interview?
I think he took a hit. Is it a death blow? No. I think his ego is a little bruised. I don't think the audience of Family Feud and all those things, and people that like Steve on the radio, I think he like Ricky Smiley. If you was a Ricky Smiley fan before, you'll be a Ricky Smiley fan now. Yeah. And it's just that, okay, it was your turn to get talked about. You got clowned on.
Yeah.
And now Steve, he got one about that man unit, man, that I think when you see him now, that's all we're going to think about is the brother in that man unit. You can't leave that one out.
Ricky Smiley was the one that concerned me because you think about it. Steve Harvey has a large crossover audience. Ricky Smiley does not.
No.
He is strictly a black, like a comedian for the African American audience in America.
Had a R. Kelly breakdown about talking about that on the response.
Did he really?
Oh yeah, that was deep with him, and he was like, it wasn't a raising a white flag, but he was like, "Why did you do me? And he cried. So that was very personal with him.
Yeah,
because I think he might be in the most fragile position out of those.
There's the point. There's the point, because Cedric got a mainstream show right now, The Neighborhood.
Yep. And
Oprah and Tyler are in their own stratosphere.
Yes.
Nothing that Katt Williams is going to say. It'll make people say, but it ain't going to change nothing about their money.
Yep.
But that's why I said Ricky Smiley, to me, was the most vulnerable, because you hitting his core and predominantly his only constituency. And if black folks start looking at you as shady or a hater or somebody you need to be cautious of, that's really his only audience.
There you go. Yes.
So I would imagine he'd be like, dang, dude, you taking not just a side dish, you trying to clear my whole plate.
There you go. And he did it. And he did it well. But I think he may have took more of a hit than what Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey will get the joke aspect and he'll get clowned more. Ricky Smiley might have took a financial dive because of that.
Yeah.
We don't know, but I would say he was the most vulnerable. I definitely would agree with that. He was the most vulnerable.
Were you one of the 13 million to watch the Monique interview?
I watched most of it because I kind of suspected what Monique was going to say, because Monique has been an advocate for equal pay in women's talent or value. And I knew she wanted to get on that. And Monique been going through a lot of stuff over the last couple of years with Tyler Perry, Oprah, and all this was coming about. And this just opened the door for her to come in.
I was listening to the Monique interview while I was getting dressed and ready for a date with my daughters in Barcelona, Spain. And I had it fired up while I was getting ready. And me and my daughters had an in-depth conversation about it over dinner. Because when I brought it up, they was both like, child. They went into it. I'm going to tell you something, man. I found Monique's words very credible, bro.
Now, see, here's the thing. Most comedians that come to our attention, they come off as very intelligent. Very, 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 very intelligent. And Monique is a very articulate, intellectual person. Mm-hmm. Katt came off as that.
He did.
But they do have their I'm gonna call it a Wendy Williams moments, or what have you. They have those, like Martin. Martin's an intelligent person, but they're gonna have those moments, the headlines that's gonna follow, those human failing moments that puts into question sometimes their intellect, for lack of a better word.
I think sometimes too, when the mic gets fired up, there's something in your gut that just bubbles up and you say what you say. I sat here no, you were in this interview with me with Curtis Jones.
Yes.
Curtis Jones said some things that I guarantee he didn't plan on saying when he was at the mic.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have it churning in your gut in these meetings, when you read the newspaper, when you watch the news, and you get an opportunity to speak on it, sometimes and I saw some of that. Yes. You know, some people, oh man, you got to get that hate out of you. I don't think it's hate. Some may be, but I think it was one of those deals where, I didn't speak on it. Damn it, I'm going to use this opportunity and speak on it. And when you look at how Monique broke her whole situation down, I was listening intently. I didn't, and I don't like the way they come across with Monique and her husband. Well, our husband always got to be involved. He's her manager. Yeah. Like Celine Dion's husband was her manager. And the list goes on.
There's some stereotypes at play. But also, let's remember this too. The sign of a great comedian is to take some truth to whatever they're saying and entertain you with it. It's always a hint of truth in what they're saying. Richard Pryor took racism and made people just bust their gut. He took the chokehold. The chokehold that we talk about now that led to George Floyd's demise. And he made a joke about it. And we were all cracking. Cracking up at the time, and he was like, "White people were saying that could be true, honey. They are, chokehold." But anyway, that part they always take a grain of truth, and they're able to stretch it like that. And usually they get us to sympathize with whatever they're trying to say. And Monique, Katt, and the great ones are good at what they do when it comes to that. Because Oprah's for Monique to go after Oprah and Tyler, that's
deep.
That's deep. And she said what she had to say, and then there's the actors, and then there's the producer's point of view.
Yeah.
With
her going after Oprah, it makes me think back to Malcolm being disciplined over what he said about JFK.
Yeah.
I just think his chickens come home to roost. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his point was very simple. Brother, how do we benefit from criticizing a president that black folk love? You ain't doing nothing but bringing negativity and ostracism onto the nation. Sometimes it's just better to just leave it alone. We all know at the time they knew JFK had women. They knew JFK was running with Sinatra. They knew some of his dirt. But like Elijah Muhammad pointed out, and it's true, black folks loved JFK. Everybody's grandmama had the calendar in their kitchen with JFK, RFK, and Dr. King.
Yes.
Everybody's grandmama had that in the kitchen. And so when it comes to Monique, I did feel a twinge of that with Oprah. And I get a twinge of that with Oprah, period, where I'm like, Oprah's one of those people where if you're in the industry, you better off just taking it to her personally. You're not going to win anything by going at her publicly.
No.
You're just not.
You're not going to win, and you're not going to get a response, but you're going to get some doors closed.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. Now, I can't say Tyler would, but what I would say is this. I heard Roland Martin say something where he was talking about the Tubies and these forums that everybody have. We have to see this as an opportunity and not just exploitation of our culture.
Yeah.
And people like Monique and Katt is using these venues now because they wouldn't have got on the network saying that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been on the Tonight Show. That wouldn't have been on Arsenio. But Club Shay Shay or this show here, it's a possibility that could go because there's no hold bars in podcast world.
That's very true. I'm going to the best of my ability. I got to give you a couple of the best comedic skits that I've seen in recent times. One at the top of that list is Dave Chappelle breaking down Juicy Smouye.
Yes.
That had me crying for days. But there was a lesser known comedian who, and I was watching him, I want to say on Instagram Reels or something like that. He said, I'm on the elevator and an old white lady gets on the elevator. He said, and all of a sudden she starts clutching her purse. He said, now I'm feeling some kind of way. He said, and it turned into a real uncomfortable situation, right? She pulling, I'm pulling. He said, I'm just like, lady, just going to let the purse go.
That was good.
And so it's like the purse snatching stereotype. He like, yeah, I'm actually trying to snatch. I must have laughed, but it goes back into him taking something that we've all experienced.
Yes.
And just turning it on its ear. And with the Dave Chappelle one, taking a situation that we all, as black folks, one of the reasons it was so funny is because I think he encapsulated what a lot of us were thinking when we heard the story. Like, man, Jesse, I'm with you, but brother, come on, man.
He the gay Tupac. When he started saying that, that's when I knew he's at Subway. He had to go get a Subway sandwich at 2:00 in the morning. Jesse was out of pocket. So, I hated to see that happen, but come on, Jesse.
Yeah, it was absolutely outrageous. But I think that overall, the Katt Williams effect with this interview with Club Shay Shay, what what, if anything, in your mind? Well, first thing, answer my own question. What is it going to change when he said that he was creating a safe space for truth, however he put it? I think that people kind of picked up. Well, people picked up on that, and they picked up on some of what you said. This was an opportunity. And even with the Monique thing, 13 million views ain't nothing to laugh at, bro.
No, it's not. I think that it got us 15 minutes of fame. I think that issue with the dress is gonna be there for a while. He wasn't the first to say it. It's been in the woke community for years to say that. And I think Monique's issues has been there for years. However, the impact of it remains to be seen on how far does Katt go? Does Katt become the new Pryor? Does he become the new Dick Gregory? Where their lives kind of left comedy and they became like spoke people or whatever. And I ain't got Katt. I don't really have Katt being like that or elevating to that level. I still think it's about the tour, and I still think it's about the bag, and we'll see. Because Eddie Griffith considers himself to be like a Katt.
He does.
And it never went nowhere. I mean, like, to hear Eddie Griffith talk, you will learn something.
You will.
And you'll learn something from Katt. But I don't see it going into social change. I don't see it there.
Yeah. Katt Williams, not Katt Williams, Shannon Sharpe. Should Shannon have handled the interviews, that interview, and the ones followed differently?
I think with the Katt, I liked it as organic as that was.
Yeah.
Because I seen it as that's what that was. I didn't want control. I wanted organic, and he got it. Yeah. I mean, we're sipping cognac. While we're sipping cognac, he gave you a real talk.
He did.
Like we was the fly on the wall.
He did.
I like that myself. Now, it's not his job to control what someone say, but that person that say it better be willing to stand on that.
This is true.
That's how I look at it, because people want to know.
Yeah. And I guess, and not comparing Shannon to Wendy Williams, but it is Wendy Williams versus, a traditional journalist. Wendy's job was to bring the tea. And although Shannon's not spending it that way, whoever he's interviewing, whether it's an ex-athlete, a comedian, they spilling tea. They talking about their own personal circumstances.
And Shannon comes along after, what is it, Bring the Smoke? You got Bring the Smoke that's out there, which is, I believe, Matt Barnes and another ball player. I forget his name at the time, but they're out there. And their show is very popular, actually.
It is.
Then you had a Kwame Brown beef with Stephen A. that went viral.
It sure did.
And it brought that up. And Shannon comes in now where these athletes have a voice now. And they realizing, here's an avenue that I could take. Jason Whitlock does it, but I don't want to promote the show because I don't really care for the brother, his take. I don't like his takes. But they have their avenues now, and Shannon found his niche. Especially, I think a lot of people sympathize with Shannon because of what happened to him on Undisputed.
Yeah.
I mean, we when he said take your glasses up, put your glasses back on or what have you, a lot of people felt that moment, man.
Yeah.
Shannon had that moment, and he became Uncle Shay or Unc. And his show fits him well.
It does. I'm glad that the brother's doing well. I'm glad that he's with Stephen A. on First Take.
Great bounce back.
It really was, because even when Undisputed, Skip Bayless had his issues with the new hosts or co-host of that show, and so and it did lay bare some things that we all know and we all knew about the industry. But I'm glad that the brother's with the brother and they're doing well as brothers.
Oh, yes.
And they're playing off of each other. I started out talking about Stephen A. because it felt like to some extent he was having to do some backtracking. I still feel like some of that is at play because Stephen, because of who he is, and for Shannon killing it. Now it's like, a lot of this is kind of landing on my doorstep indirectly.
And his show failed before.
Yeah.
Where he had Stephen A.'s talk show. That didn't work. And here comes Shannon now.
Yeah.
Shannon, it lands on his lap because then now all of a sudden Stephen A. had a podcast. It was not doing. He's been on satellite radio forever.
That is so true, Mark. I forgot about that.
And he didn't do what Shannon did, and I think he can't do what Shannon did because one, he's Disney.
Yeah.
And he's already told you when he went after Jason Whitlock, which that was a funny one. That was Stephen A. uncuffed and called him a fat piece of whatever, all like this. But he said, before I did it, I called my people to say, okay, this is what I'm getting ready to do. Shannon ain't got to call nobody.
He sure doesn't.
He called his damn self. That's what Mark said. I'm going to check with my damn self.
Yeah.
And I like that. And that's the freedom that they have, and we can get our own narrative out there.
So I got to ask this then. As they're announcing the potential retirement of Jimmy Kimmel, your boy threw his hat into the arena and actually announced that he thinks he would make a great talk show host for the Jimmy Kimmel Show, that being Stephen A. Give me your thoughts on that.
To be honest, I'm going to name somebody that I think would be great for that, in line for that. It would be Chris Rock. And simply because he has that type of comedy and he can interview. And he's funny like that. I don't have Stephen A. Stephen A. is a journalist, and he's learning how to entertain, and we can relate to him in that sports world. But I've seen that before with him trying to do whatever. But I like Chris Rock, and I'm not really a Chris Rock. If he came to Erie, I want to sit in the front row. I'm not that way with him. However, when I'm talking, who does that show fit? It fits Chris Rock. He's New York.
Exactly.
He's New York.
Exactly. Saturday Night Live and all.
He's right? All of it. He embodies all that.
That is a very good point. And yeah, I could sign on to that. I didn't see Stephen A. I don't see Stephen A. It does not feel like his bag.
I don't see the man, what we call it, I don't see Steve Harvey.
No. Or Michael Strahan, because I'm sure Michael Strahan would throw his hat into that.
Yeah, and I don't really care for Michael. I mean, like, I like Michael. He's swag. But I don't want to see Michael Strahan on that. Yeah. I think Chris Rock would be perfect on that show.
Well, I'll say this, man, before we close out. Katt Williams, what I appreciated about it most is the interview, at least to me, humanized the brother. And not that he's been dehumanized per se. It gave you a more personal glimpse into who he is. Because I listened to him with a different ear than comedian. Now, he would slip into some of his comedic ways and I would start laughing. But it was really, it felt like a relaxed 60 Minutes interview or Tavis Smiley interview where people would just, speaking of which, I miss my brother, man. I need more Tavis. He's one of my inspirations, man.
Yeah, I like Tavis.
He's on my Mount Rushmore when it comes to doing this thing. Tavis Smiley is that guy. But in any event, I felt like I knew him, Katt, a little better when the interview was done. And I think that unto itself, man, kind of lend itself to why people, gravitated towards it a little bit. You felt closer to him.
I think Katt is very talented. He's a very aware comedian, and I'm not just going to label him just a comedian. A very talent. He's a very aware talent. That's the best way I will say. I won't put ours in a box.
Yeah, I got you. So listen, we know that we're actually a little overdue with this. We know that if you're listening to this and that's your thing, you've been hearing about Katt Williams breaking the internet. You've been hearing about the interview in Club Shay Shay, and if you didn't know what that was all about, I'm sure it at least tempted you to go and find out on your phone or whatever the situation was. But it created a seismic shift in the YouTube universe and the way we interview one-on-one and just the people that he mentioned. And so there was a fallout. There was a reckoning for some people. And we wanted to just sit down and analyze it a little bit. We want to hear your thoughts. And we got a new feature that we want to talk about today as we leave, because now if you want to leave a message, comment, or suggestion for the show, you can actually call the next hotline, which is 814-240-8816. You can even text the next hotline. If you got something to say about the Katt Williams thing, about Monique, the fallout from it, I'm anxious to hear. Make sure that you feel good about your take, because we might just use it on social media. We might just use it on the air. But again, that's 814-240-8816. But overall, that's it for our show today. Next time, you can tune in for more discussion and analysis with local and national guests. I need you to remember that Next 2.0 streams on Fridays on all major podcast platforms and the fourth Sunday of the month at 4 p.m. on WQLN NPR, which is 91.3 FM. And once again, the new feature is now live. The next hotline can be called at 814-240-8816. Give us your take. Give us your thoughts. leave your message. I'm Marcus Atkinson. This has been my co-host, Marc Blount. Right. And we appreciate you joining us. Come again and join us next time so you can hear about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Peace.
Peace.